Hey guys, welcome back to the Strength for Generations podcast. I'm your host, Krista Baker. I'm really glad that you're here today. So if this is your first time listening, welcome to our community of faith-driven parents who are serious about health that honors God and supports the life that we're called to live. In today's episode, it's a continuation of some really important conversations we've been having with my guest speaker. His name is Piotr Slowinski. He really has helped us get into the deeper layers of our health. So if you haven't listened to any of our previous episodes, you can go back to episode 22 where we did a deep dive into 101 metabolic health, foundational understanding of how our body actually works at the cellular level. Episode 25, he shared his research, the science, and the formulation behind what we're talking about. In episode 28, we went deep into women's health. So we covered PCOS, endometriosis, perimenopause, pregnancy, even babies being tongue-tied, and how all of these are connected to metabolic function. So if you know anyone that's struggling with that, I really highly recommend listening to that one. Episode 31, we talked about diabetes, insulin resistance, myocarditis. So these conditions that are becoming epidemic and how they're all traced back to the same root issue. In episode 34, we discussed the real root cause of gut problems and how your digestive health connects to everything else happening in your body. So there's a lot there, but these aren't just those like nice to know topics. This is information that can actually change everything for you and for your family. So today we're diving into something that I think about quite often and that I see a lot of my clients struggle with or someone in their family struggle with. And you probably heard people talk about the mental health crisis that's affecting our children and families. And I need to share some statistics with you that are going to be hard to hear. So in the US, anxiety disorders now affect 32% of adolescents. That's nearly 1 in 3. 1 in 3. Depression rates among teens have increased by over 60% in the last decade. In Canada, we're experiencing the same thing. We have, suicide is now the second leading cause of death among young people, ages 15 to 24. And here's the thing that's really striking. It's actually not like this all around the world. Because we look at other countries like, Japan or South Korea, rural areas or parts of Scandinavia, these rates are actually significantly lower. In some traditional communities, anxiety and depression rates are 3 to 5 times lower than what we're seeing here. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not dismissing the real struggles our children are facing. I'm not. I struggled with anxiety. I had my first anxiety attack when I was 15. I was at school and I had to have a friend walk me down the stairs and have my mom come pick me up from school. I'll never forget how I felt that day. I was scared to even walk down the stairs. I've had many panic attacks in my life. I haven't had one in a very long time, praise God, but this pain is very real and these symptoms are real and the impact on families is devastating and real. And on top of it now, social media, cultural pressures, academic stress, and all the external factors are absolutely contributing to what our kids are experiencing. But what if I told you that there are things happening inside their bodies that are making them more vulnerable to all these external pressures? I recently had a conversation with one of my clients, and we got to really dive into this situation for her. She was telling me about her son's behavior and his changes, his mood swings, his anxiety, his difficulty concentrating, emotional outburst that seemed to just come out of nowhere. And as she was describing what was happening, I stopped her and said, this isn't him. This isn't his character or his heart. These are things happening at a deeper level that are affecting how his brain and body are functioning. And we started looking at what was happening inside his body, his nutrition, his cellular health, his metabolic function. And when we addressed those root issues, his behavior began to change. Not because we ignored the emotional and mental aspects, but because we gave him the things that his brain and his body needed to function properly. This is what Piotr and I have been working on together through all of these episodes, understanding that what we're calling mental health issues might actually be metabolic health issues showing up in the brain. When your cells can't produce energy efficiently, when your blood chemistry is off, when your body is in a state of chronic stress at the cellular level, it affects everything. including how your brain processes emotions, handles stress, and regulates mood. Here's what I believe is happening. We have an epidemic of metabolic dysfunction in our society. If you listen to any of the podcasts I put out this week, you'll see some statistics that I shared with you guys. Our food system, our lifestyle, our environment, they're all contributing to cellular damage that's showing up as mental health symptoms. And instead of addressing the root cause, we're treating the symptoms yet again, which means we're not actually helping our children heal. We're just managing their pain. And if anything shows you what managing pain does, we know what that does to us long term. Remember, if you look back to our last episode, I talked about the minerals that are being depleted from our bones because of these meds. And I'm not anti-med. But what I am is I want to get to the root. I want to understand why are these things happening and what can we do to make them better. And I truly believe that there's good news. When we understand what's happening, we can actually do something about it. Sometimes that means making changes to nutrition. Sometimes it means addressing the nutrient deficiencies. Sometimes it means supporting the body's natural detox pathways. And yes, sometimes it means working with professionals who understand both the mental and metabolic aspects of health. If what I'm sharing today resonates with you, if you have any questions about your own health or your children's health, I want you to know that help is available. You can go to my website, bakerfamilyfitness.com/glucoferrin. You spell glucoferrin, GLUCOFERRIN. And there you can fill out a form, and either Piotr or I can reach out to you. Dr. Christie is available as well to read labs. They can help you understand your labs, connect you with doctors who actually understand this on a deeper level. Or we can even just have a conversation about resources that might help your family. I love families so much. I believe in families. I know how much we all love each other and we care for each other. And these things are really hard. But we know that when we start to make these really good changes in our lives, that good things will come. And we have to go back to what God says. You can message me privately. You can reach out. I have lots of different resources I can point you towards. So please do not hesitate at all. This conversation today with Piotr is going to challenge some things you might believe about mental health. But I believe it's going to give you hope. Because when we understand what's really happening, we can start addressing the real issue. And that's when that healing becomes possible, my friends. All right, let's dive in. Welcome to Strength for Generations, the go-to podcast for Christian families who want to build strength, restore energy, and deepen connection with God at the center. I'm Krista Baker, Christian health coach, wife, mom, and co-founder of Baker Family Fitness. I'm here to help you honor God with your health and bring peace back to the process, to simplify what it means to build strength in your body, renew your mind, and care for your spirit, all without losing precious time with your family. So grab your coffee and your ribeye, and let's do this His way. All right, my friends, we are back at it. And today we are digging into depression, anxiety, mental health. We see that this is a very, very common thing that we are hearing a lot about. I'm sure we all have family members, maybe ourselves, maybe you've been going through some struggling times. But what Piotr's going to teach us today is the correlation with the iron metabolism and stability. So I'm going to let you take over from here and just really dig into what's actually happening.
Okay. All right. So it's a very wide, complex task, which I'm going to try to simplify it so everybody gets this, as easy as I can possibly can. Let's start going back to amino acids. What glucoferrin is, it's sulfur-bonded 708 amino acids, which are iron-binding, sequestering, chelating protein. Very important is, I'm going to repeat this until everybody gets it or they get sick and tired of hearing it, okay? Because this is the whole premise. So when we lack those amino acids to create proteins properly and replicate our DNA to sustain our life, longevity, and the best of our genes, not the worst of our genes, okay? We need protein, okay? Protein, which is amino acid, is the only thing in our body which has DNA. Fats don't have DNA. Carbohydrates have no DNA. They're there to support the DNA from protein and would be utilized as an additional material to help our body. But DNA, it's only assigned to protein. That's who we are. And it's not my opinion. It's a scientifically proven fact all the way from the cavemen. Okay? So the deficiency of protein amino acids trigger iron binding capacity and eventually triggers formation and secretion of red blood cells and hemoglobin. When we develop that problem, later on, we develop weaknesses from our genetic messages from the parents, and we start to have conditioned metabolic disorders based on the genetic code. But a lot of us right now, as we speak, develop those problems even further. The reason is we eat every day super abundant amount of iron fortified food. And we're not talking just a bit. It's overwhelming. When it's overwhelming, we start to develop iron overload, hemochromatosis, eventually ferroptosis, which is the 3 stages of the same thing. Just each one of them, it's more damaging and lifespan shortening than the other previous one. So that's how we start to develop problems with iron absorption and utilization, which is anemia. Young people, especially when we focus on young people right now, they are not taught the way we used to eat. Therefore, they basically live on processed food. Processed food has a whole list of the things which we can negate. But priority, it's iron fortification. Now, let me state very important, because there's going to be some smart people listening to me, and they will say, maybe I agree, I disagree. Well, let me clean this up so there is no disagreement here. Every chemical can cause 1 or 2 problems, or 3, or maybe more. Well, iron, it's used as a base feeding mechanism support of every human being, which means when you have a dysregulation of distribution and utilization iron in the red blood cell formation, which is the only feeding system of the human body, and we do not have the second one, which means iron overload, dysregulation, hemochromatosis will be implicated in every single cell of your body. And that's what makes this higher priority than other chemicals, metals. They're all not good. But the priority is in iron, because it's our life which it's sustained on hemoglobin, which is only supported by iron proper metabolism. Okay? Now, going further, I'm using young people again. Young people, from my experience, especially younger females, it's almost hard to find right now which one doesn't have anxiety. It's like you teenager, you have anxiety, that's your package. You teenager, you have a depression. Yeah, that's how it goes. These days that's normal. Well, it's a problem because they iron overload, they process food overload, they don't utilize proteins because they lacking them, and they start to develop problem with glutathione and liver. Now, that's where we get to the culprit of the problem. Okay. Liver releases glutathione. Glutathione is our master antioxidant. And that's why I mentioned about detox, okay? We don't need detox. Glutathione it's made in our body, he will do just fine if we let him do it. Okay? We don't need any chemicals throwing to detox in the body. It's called chelation treatment. Okay? The chelators are proteins, amino acids. It's all about the same thing over and over. So glutathione has to be made in our liver by 3 amino acids. And again, we go into the amino acids we mentioned before, sulfur bonded, methionine, and cysteine, and then taurine. Now, taurine, it's involved in that process, but taurine does not create proteins. It supports the function of glutathione. The other one are proteinogenesis involved, which means formation of protein. So glutathione is basically 3 amino acids, which becomes the major player in human body regulation of iron, detox, pathogens, and everything else, viruses. Now, when we go further from the liver, we get into anxiety. Well, anxiety, it's part of it is caused by dysfunction of hemoglobin of transferring, and I mentioned before, every single cell, it has to be fed, including your hair, okay, with hair red blood cells. So hemoglobin supposed to be functional. If it's not functional, you will diminish support of every cell in the body from oxygen and glycogen and sulfur and nitrogen. Well, let's focus on those 2 major ones, okay? The first one is oxygen. It's called hypoxia. It's reduced oxygen level. Second one, it's called hypoglycemia. It's reduced glycogen level. So now I'm going to use analogy because analogies always work. When you don't have a glycogen and oxygen, tell me, Krista, would you like to feel like if I cut down 5% of those things from your body, are you going to be really ready to go to gym and exercise? No, you're going to take a nap.
Yeah.
Well, that's happened to your brain too. He's going to go into stage of nap. He's going to get tired. It's going to get foggy. It's going to get negative thoughts. It's going to have fear because everything is based on it. Your decision maker is going to be disrupted. You're going to go to car, you wouldn't know where you're going. You're going to talk to the friend and you're going to forget what you want to say to the friend. And it's all hypoxia and hypoglycemia. Now, this is the first part. The second part is you're not feeding your brain. Well, that's the first part. Second thing, glutathione, methionine, and cysteine, besides glutathione, they are also involved in making serotonin. Actually, methionine, it's used to make serotonin, and it helps with cysteine to go to methylation process to release from serotonin melatonin. So if you don't have those amino acids again, loaded with oxygen and glycogen, you're going to have suppression of serotonin, which is stimulated during the daytime to make us happy, and then conversion and triggered by nighttime, lack of light, stimulation and secretion by pineal gland of melatonin, which while we sleep connected with circadian cycle, the cycle of Earth. Well, if you're going to have few days of disruption of happy hormone and sleeping hormone and feel good hormone, well, you're going to be really anxious because last time I checked, sleep deprivation was the worst type of torture on human body. So right there, you get to the first stage. Now, second stage, it's during the day. When people don't have energy, they cannot perform. Well, hypoxia and glycogen, it's also involving muscles. Well, there is a muscle called diaphragm, which makes us breathe. Well, when you have a reduction of nitrogen, nitric oxide, sulfur, glycogen, and oxygen, every muscle develop what they call lactic acidosis, which means you have not proper ATP energy breakdown in the muscle tissue, which makes you muscle sore and sluggish. Well, when you sore, you can hardly walk. But how about if your muscle, which makes you breathe, feels the same way? All of a sudden, you start to have, well, and then you don't have a red blood cells with ferritin properly transferring, distribute hemoglobin in the lung tissue and bronchus, okay, called alveoli, and you start to get low oxygen and hypoxia and hypoglycemia in your lungs. Well, that's anxiety. Well, with anxiety, what is happening is the second is fear, because we are in fear that we're gonna suffocate. Well, hemochromatosis, when it's already with ferritin level overload, turns in ferroptosis. Ferroptosis, it's called oxidative stress. Basically, corrosion and rusting process on the cellular level. Ferroptosis, it's involved in neurological problems such as Alzheimer, Parkinson's. It's all known all around the world. And it causes oxidative stress, which causes deplenishment even further of vital nutrients such as oxygen and glycogen and sulfur and nitrogen in the brain cells. Well, then the brain gonna get really foggy. Well, ferroptosis, it's a definition of it. I don't like to say sometimes because people don't like to hear it, but it's accelerated cellular iron-induced cellular death. And that is depression combined with anxiety. Now, when this feeding mechanism is disrupted every single day, your level of oxygen goes down, your level of glycogen goes down, and after a month or 2 months, you're chronically depressed. There is two types of depressions. One, and I actually work in psychiatry business in my first life in the United States for 3 years. So I'm very familiar with that, is clinical depression, situational depression, and also metabolic depression. Metabolic depression is the most common because come from iron overload process and nutrient depleted food. Okay? Now, why do we always, when we exercise, we talk about proteins? Well, to put the boost to the muscles. Well, the brain needs the boost too. Your thought process storage in your hippocampus. Hippocampus is the area when we develop ferroptosis, which exactly Alzheimer happens. It's called hippocampus. And it's responsible for daily learning and also processing of the thought process. If that doesn't work, we lose ability to learn and to memorize. The second part is substantia nigra. It's the part with dopamine. It's it's properly formed. And GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid is created. And GABA, it's actually made from methionine, okay? So methionine actually creates GABA. So now we have iron overload on substantia nigra outside, but inside by scans we can detect iron deficiency, but it's caused from the outside sealing of that part of the brain, preventing from nutrients to get inside to create proper release of dopamine in the body. Well, then we have a problem with the mental capacity as well as physical capacity. Okay? Now, why I say no? Do you ever see person depressed going to gym?
No. Well, I mean, it depends. If they have burpees in their workout, then
What do you have?
if they have burpees in their workout,
Then you crash after.
yes, or they're just really sad about it.
And then for you cannot recover for a week after.
Yeah.
And you try to figure out what happened to you.
Right.
So you see, so this is how metabolism of iron, it's involved in anxiety and depression in the most easy way I can describe. And again, this is not opinion. It's a metabolic physiological fact in human body. It's okay. Let me tell you something. In human body, every day it's a transition, positive or negative. We call this in metabolism a cascade.
Right.
Now, why cancer is so prevalent in bodybuilders and sport people? You tell me.
I don't know. I see it in so many people that aren't.
So their opinion, it's based not on scientific proof, and I'm not telling about choices of eating. No. Every single person needs transitional time. You cannot take the baby and make it run, yes? It has to start to crawl, and start to walk, and start to little run, then run faster. Metabolism is the same way. Now, a lot of guys, they say, oh, you can go. No, they're not familiar with condition called alpha-gal or galactosemia. Once they get familiar with that, they will change very quickly their opinion. Trust me.
So we now understand the connection that we have to the mental stability in people, like the mental wellness and the brain and all, and how all that works. And then on top of it, we just keep giving it more, because like a lot of people don't understand the connection between even their gut and their brain.
The gut is regulated by iron.
Right.
All your bacteria, hepcidin, everything in your body, it's regulated by iron, your gut flora, everything. So it does affect your brain because it based how much iron you actually extract, how much iron you process, how much iron you store, and how much iron you utilize for red blood cells. And that's what is related to gut flora. Because remember, bacteria doesn't go to the brain. Is the process which bacteria is involved, and it needs iron to be regulated in gut flora to order to be actually influential on the other stage. Because that's why you have an endocrine system and endocrine and exocrine, okay? Now, digestive system, it's exocrine, okay? The brain, it's endocrine. You cannot miss and match. The endocrine, it's sealed. The exocrine, it's open to the outside. You see? So this is, again, it's a human endocrinology, which a lot of people don't understand. It's not just simple, oh, you take probiotics, you're going to be fine. It doesn't work that way. It's a lot more complex. But the whole point is what we're saying right now. We're introducing glucoferrin, which is going to be for people who are carnivorous, okay, who are people who are vegetarians, who are people who are keto, who are people who don't know who they really even are.
Right.
But we have a glucoferrin, a solution for their metabolic dysregulation. Once they start to feel, and trust me, after 3 cycles of 120 days of degradation of red blood cells in hemoglobin, I can tell that they're gonna first time wake up and say, I think I realized who I am. Well, then you make your conscious decision what lifestyle you're going to choose. Before that, you're just jumping from one side to the other because you don't even know who you are and how to control your metabolic performance, because in the body, everything is about metabolic stability of the nutrients. Okay, so that's how glucophage helps people to get them where they want to be. And then when they're healthy, they're going to make choices. And I'm fine with every choice of every person, who they want to be, what they want to eat. I'm just perfectly okay with it.
Well, I think we're going to end that one there because I feel like there's so many nuggets that we can just take away from this. This is a deeper one today. And I feel like, anyone that really needs support, I often hear from a lot of people, I don't want to be taking this medicine anymore, but I need it, or I don't know how to come off of it. And, a lot of the times we start with, like you said, what happens when you move? You start to feel better. You start to feed yourself better. You start to become and look at yourself in the mirror. I was reading a client check-in today and she's like, I actually like who I'm becoming now, and these are the things that we really strive for. I think the mental health, like even the brain is really important to me as my mom with Parkinson's. Like I really care about trying to figure out a way to like support her. So we finally got her on board, just with all your guidance. And I'm just grateful to have you here today. If there's any last words that you have in this topic, otherwise I think that's a good way to close off.
To have a last word. I always have a last one.
Okay.
I did some write-up, and Dr. Christie is very familiar with the write-up. And I wrote in one write-up about hemoglobin, the only feeding system we have. And I wrote very important sentence. When you metabolize iron properly, the iron gets inside the cells and makes you strong. This is called the Iron Man. When your iron is stuck outside the cell, your epitome of Iron Man, you are just become a weak person, mentally and physically. And we have a solution to help you with that.
Thanks for tuning in to Strength for Generations. If this podcast encouraged you, it would be a blessing if you took a quick minute to leave a 5-star review. It helps more families hear this message and find hope for their health and faith journey. It lights me up to know this podcast is helping you. And if you feel led to share this episode, text it to a friend, post it to your stories, or send it to someone on your heart. God might use it to encourage someone who really needs it today. And don't forget to eat steaks, lift weights, love Jesus, and keep doing it His way.